Rajon, Rondo, and Rick Carlisle were supposed to bring out the best in one another. A savant championship-winning point guard paired with a cerebral offensive-minded coach with hardware of his own. When the Dallas Mavericks acquired Rondo before the 2015 trade deadline, the move was expected to put Dallas closer to championship contention and earn the two brilliant minds another trophy. Except what followed was a drama-fueled relationship that imploded almost immediately, leaving a ton of beef. Hello, lovely viewer. Subscribe to Secret Base on Patreon. For a few bucks a month, you get a ton of exclusive content and early access to videos weeks and even months in advance before they hit YouTube. Imagine the flex of being truly first on something. Anyways, let's get back to it. It's not the least bit surprising that beef burned between Rick Carlisle and Rajon Rondo. In a way, the two dudes are strikingly similar. Genius is often attached to both of their names. It's also important to stress that they're both often tagged with this label. I'll let you read the screen because you guys don't like it when I say bad words to emphasize my points. So, how did we get here? Before becoming a head coach, Carlisle spent years as an assistant, most notably under Larry Bird with the Indiana Pacers, where he was recognized as an offensive mastermind. When Bird stepped down following the 99-2000 season, Carlisle seemed like the obvious successor, but to put it nicely, his vibes were off. Gaining a head coaching gig isn't solely a popularity contest, but it doesn't help if this was a consensus report about your character. See? I was nice. Anyway, with his unique ability to craft offenses, Carlisle ultimately earned lead roles with the Detroit Pistons and later returned to Indy. At both stops, Carlisle turned teams into winners with conference finals appearances and even a Coach of the Year award. Yet, he wore out his welcome in both destinations, clashing with at least one player or management altogether. Known for a my way or the highway approach, Carlisle often alienated his players, struggling to connect with them, something he ultimately admitted to after getting canned in Indy. We love a self-aware king. However, more than just his attitude, his offensive philosophy rubbed folks the wrong way. He preferred a slow-paced, deliberate style of play, calling plays on nearly every possession, aka a control freak. In Indy, point guard Jamal Tinsley notably grew fed up with being forced to slow the tempo after growing accustomed to a more free-flowing pace under previous coaches. Wait, Rondo plays point guard. The young guard first hit the league with the Boston Celtics during the 06-07 season, Carlisle's final year in Indiana. Rondo brought the same high IQ for the game that made him indispensable in high school and at the University of Kentucky under legendary coach Tubby Smith, even if that also meant running his mouth and challenging authority. With the Celtics, Rondo ascended quickly, quarterbacking a squad of future first-ballot Hall of Famers, winning a title in just his second season. However, his unparalleled ability to see the game from a high level also made him a headache to coach, as he constantly clashed with Celtics coach Doc Rivers and repeatedly found himself in the midst of trade rumors. Rondo didn't necessarily think he was difficult to coach. He just knew he wouldn't back down if he thought he had a better solution. A not as self-aware king, but we still love him. Ultimately, the C's never moved Rondo ASAP because despite being a nuisance, as the rest of his supporting cast aged, Boston was preparing to make Rondo his franchise cornerstone. Until they did. Midway through the 2014-15 season, Boston shipped Rondo to the Dallas Mavericks in a blockbuster move aimed at pairing a stubborn, veteran point guard with Rick Carlisle, who, after being fired by the Pacers, found ultimate success in Dallas. Pairing two known combative dudes sounds like a recipe for disaster, but Dallas had a precedent. When Carlisle arrived in Dallas during the 08-09 season, he inherited a team with veteran Jason Kidd, another headstrong, ball-dominant point guard who had his fair share of beef with coaches. While Carlisle and Kidd's issues never reached grabby headlines, they butted heads early on over pace and offensive control. Kidd preferred pushing the tempo. Carlisle wanted control to set up plays. Carlisle eventually adjusted, giving Kidd more freedom, and the compromise paid off incredibly as they finished their third season together as champions. Carlisle would have never switched up for the better if it weren't for Kidd. That championship chemistry shaped the Rondo trade. Mavericks owner Mark Cuban openly gushed about Rondo, comparing him to Kidd, seeing the potential risk could produce the same payoff. Although league whispers suggested Carlisle wasn't fully sold. Still, the deal was done, leaving Rondo and Carlisle to find out whether history would repeat itself. Early signs weren't promising. Just 17 games into his stint with the Mavs, Carlisle benched Rondo for the final 5 minutes of a fourth quarter in a matchup against the Chicago Bulls. Carlisle simply labeled it as a coach's decision. However, when journalists pressed for further explanation, especially considering days prior, Carlisle had just praised Rondo's performance in clutch spots. The coach wasn't having it. Rondo seemed to take the benching in stride. He had faith in Carlisle and wasn't going to let 5 minutes of playing time shake his confidence. For a dude that's been known to be a very few words throughout his career, Rondo giving a resounding trust in his coach seemed to be a positive sign moving forward. Except it's maybe a bit difficult to keep that outlook when the team turns in mid-performances and journalists look to you for the blame. A few weeks after the benching, the Mavs fell in a lopsided loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder, where Rondo looked dreadful. Post-game, when questioned about his fit within the Mavs offense, Rondo seemed much more defensive, saying Carlisle calls the plays and he just follows orders. But outside of their perceived digs in the press, the two spoke glowingly about how the relationship was starting to bloom. It had the makings of a slow burn similar to Carlisle and Kidd, and we know how that ended. Another championship is on the way. Nothing to worry about here. Don't think I've ever been able to tell someone's anger strictly from the back of their head, but just look at those creases in his neck as he barks at Rondo. Maybe everything wasn't so smooth. Early in the third quarter of a February matchup against the Toronto Raptors, it looked as if Carlisle tried calling a play. Rondo blew him off, leaving the coach to stump out damn near half court to call a timeout. As Rondo walked back to the bench, the two exchanged pleasantries, and Rondo was ultimately pulled for the rest of the game. Post-game, Carlisle downplayed the incident. Rondo didn't have much to say either. It seemed as if no one in the Mavs organization thought it was a big deal, which kinda went against later reports that Carlisle and Rondo's exchange carried over into the locker room, and the team ultimately suspended Rondo for 1 game. Sources within the franchise stated the friction between the two had been bubbling over play calling responsibilities. Sounds familiar. Anyway, after the suspension, it seemed like the two just wanted to keep it pushing. When Rondo returned, Carlisle made a point to emphasize to the media his point guard's importance to the team's title hopes, and as a coach, it was his responsibility to put Rondo in right situations. Rondo knew he acted out of line and responded out of anger to his performances throughout the season, but the most important thing was getting back to proper communication with Carlisle. Plus, Rondo wasn't new to this. Wonder if that was a menacing chuckle. The two believed any animosity they had was gone, and they were prepared to get back to chasing a title. However, their chances for a ring didn't look so high. While there was no more visible beef between the two, the conversation in the media again shifted to, wow, this team looks kinda trash with Rondo, as Dallas ultimately limped into the playoffs. In the past, Rondo had been known to elevate his play in the postseason when it mattered most, so maybe the Mavericks were still in store for a special run. Nah. Rondo was embarrassingly terrible in Dallas's first-round exit against the Houston Rockets, but Game 2 of that series seemed to seal his fate with the franchise. Rondo played a total of 34 seconds in the second half before hitting the bench for the remainder of the game. For a championship veteran who knows what it takes to win in the playoffs, Rondo looked totally checked out. Following the matchup, Carlisle leaned on this tried-and-true statement, calling Rondo's benching a coach's decision. When asked specifically about his point guard's uninspiring performance, Carlisle said those questions needed to be directed to Rondo, which weren't going to be answered as Rondo purposely ducked the media. However, the following day, the public at large gained some insight when Dallas issued a press release stating Rondo had suffered a back injury and was shut down indefinitely. Journalists called Cap. Carlisle hastily tried to clear the air before Game 3, aware of people's suspicions. If Rondo was hurt, why not mention it ASAP? He attempted to further explain the situation, but with Rondo hitting free agency in the summer, he didn't mince his words when questioned about his future with the franchise. For Carlisle, the entire blueprint of trying to replicate the relationship he had with Kidd was bound to fail from the onset with Rondo. In a separate interview with ESPN's Tim McMahon, Carlisle detailed that Kidd and Rondo were vastly different players, and while there were some similarities, the differences between the two were too extreme. Sure, they were both extremely gifted point guards who could see the floor better than anyone, but outside of that, they had totally different bags. By the time Kidd joined the Mavs, he developed into a dangerous sniper from three, forcing defenses to drift out, while teams happily left Rondo open, daring him to shoot. But for Carlisle, the biggest differences between the two were their pace preferences. With Kidd, Carlisle learned the importance of playing an up-tempo offense, abandoning his past traits of calling plays on every single possession. Rondo was accustomed to walking the ball up the court. For the coach, attempting to switch up Rondo's pace smack dab in the middle of the season was an impossible task. The February incident of Rondo slowly bringing the ball up the court, while Carlisle exploded trying to get him to push the pace, was the culmination of the two's frustrations with each other boiling over into the public. The following season, with Rondo now in the Sacramento Kings, Carlisle spoke reflectively about their past half year together, doubling down, saying they gave it their best shot, but it was a move that both sides clearly should have avoided. The coach also all but confirmed earlier rumors that he never wanted Rondo in the first place, saying it was a trade that Dirk strongly pressed for. Woof. Rondo mostly remained quiet in the years following his Mavs departure, agreeing with his former coach that their connection wasn't for a lack of effort, but when budding superstar point guard Tyrese Halliburton was traded to the Pacers during the 21-22 season, a team that Carlisle was coaching yet again, Halliburton claimed Rondo gave him a fair warning about the coach's playstyle. It wasn't until 2023, 8 years removed from his days with the Mavs, that Rondo spoke his true piece about his relationship with Carlisle. During a podcast appearance with his former Dallas teammate Chandler Parsons, Rondo provided more context on their infamous blow-up and felt that Carlisle treated him like some inexperienced rookie, never allowing him to play the way the front office pitched him on.
When I was brought to Dallas, they told me, they was like, we want you to be J. Kidd. We want you to be, vocal. We want you to run the offense. I'm a champion at the same time. I give you a lot of respect. I came here out and say shit. And then for you to come at me like I'm a young player, a rookie, to know what the fuck he's talking about or what he's doing or how to manage a game, that's disrespectful on top of what you all brung me here to do and what I was told how you all wanted me to perform as a point guard on this unit.
Well, damn. He later said the PR release about his back injury was a BS ploy the Mavs used, when in reality, he had been informed that Carlisle no longer wanted to coach him.
The narrative was, he quit on the team. Like, them motherfuckers said Rick doesn't want to coach you with Donnie Nelson on the phone and Gil Duffy. So it's like, okay, fuck it, I don't want to play for Rick. You know what I mean? Like, he's spinning his nerve. We're going to just say your back hurts, and that'll be it. I'm never quitting anything in life, so this whole shit that y'all spinning around me, I'm going to take the booze, I'm going to eat this shit for the rest of my career because I don't want to say much, but at the same time, that's not how it went.
For a guy who rarely spoke during his career, it's quite clear Rondo had a lot to get off his chest. Or maybe the extent of this beef was just the two getting off on a hilariously bad start from the beginning. But that was that. Two hard-headed guys sold on a dream to win a championship rooted in a previous unique relationship. Rondo might have bought the tale from ownership, but Carlisle seemed to be iffy from the jump. in a pairing that lasted less than a full calendar year, but produced bountiful beef. Thanks for watching this episode of Beef History. Shout out to the Mavericks front office for making an awful trade that was bound to fail in the name of creating wonderful content for us to make later.